So my name's Merrick, and I've had the same recurring dream going on since I was about 6 or 7 years old. I don't remember exactly when it started. My parents took me to the Columbia Zoo in South Carolina, and it was my first time ever going to the zoo. And I saw this orangutan in one of the pits, and it was just this huge, monstrous orange monkey thing. And the zoo trip was pretty uneventful. We didn't do anything all that exciting, saw the animals and things like that. But that night when we got home, it was the first time I had this dream. And so it took place in my childhood home growing up, which is this two-story house with this like bright red roof on this like piece of land. It was surrounded by woods on all sides, but it took place in the dream and I was out in the yard playing. I don't really smell in dreams, I think, but this one had a really distinct smell. I could smell salt in the air, and I could smell like the grass pollen, the grass seed. Suddenly coming out of the woods was that same orangutan that I saw at the zoo, but for some reason it felt so much bigger and scarier and things like that. So it started chasing me through the yard. And so I started running into the house. And then I locked all the doors and shut all the blinds and hunkered down in the house, but then suddenly I hear a crashing window noise upstairs. And I hear pounding and things falling upstairs. So I run into what I know now is an elevator shaft, which didn't make sense because there was no elevator in the house, obviously. So I started climbing up the elevator shaft to get away from this orangutan, and the elevator shaft was endless. I just kept climbing and climbing and climbing, and this orangutan was still behind me, chasing me and chasing me. And I had to have climbed at least 6 or 7 stories worth before I fell, and fell all the way down the elevator shaft into the darkness, and then that's when I would wake up. So the first time I had this dream was terrifying, and screamed, and parents came running into the room to care for me and things like that. And then I didn't have that dream again for a couple months, went on with my life, no big deal. But then it happened again, same dream, same scenario. I was wearing the same clothes, same age, and it just kept happening, and always the same thing. It would run around the house a few times, I'd run into the house, and then I'd climb up this elevator shaft and kept going and going. But each time in the dream I made it a little bit farther up the shaft. So the first time was 6 or 7 stories, the second time was maybe 8 stories. And I've had that dream about once or twice a year, every year since then, up until I was about 20. But then I had it again a couple months ago for the first time in a really long time, and it put me back in that same feeling where I was when I was 6 years old, just helpless and vulnerable. But in that dream, for the first time, I was my age I am now, so I was, 27 in the dream. But I was still running and screaming and crying like I was a 6-year-old kid, but still climbing up the elevator shaft. This one felt like it went on for ages because I climbed up all the way up the elevator shaft and finally found the end of it. And I went out the door, the elevator doors, into a white room, totally blank white room, like something out of the Matrix or maybe what you see when you die, I don't know. But then I woke up after I got into the white room, and for the first time after having this dream, I was calm. I didn't wake up in a panic. It hasn't happened since then, and I feel like the dream almost got resolved in a way, and I'm not sure if it has anything to do with like the fact that I've started to actually achieve things in my life and set out and accomplish goals or things like that, but I don't know, I haven't had it since. I guess I'll find out if it keeps on going after that.
Basically, as far back as I can remember, probably around like 3 or 4 years old or something, whenever I would get sick really bad and get a fever, I would always have this dream where I would be standing on a really long, thin tightrope, and I couldn't see one end of the tightrope, where I couldn't see where it started and I couldn't see where it ended, but it was this really long, thin silver tightrope. And I would be balancing on it with like a big balance beam. And above me, maybe like 20 feet or something above me, I can see these kind of like gold, hazy, foggy clouds. And then right below me is the same thing. About 20 feet below me is the same thing. So I can't really see above or below me, but everything has like a kind of goldish hue to it. And as I'm walking along this tightrope, the tightrope is like kind of like digging into my feet. And as I'm walking forward, there's boulders that are falling out of the sky that are just barely missing the balance beam I'm holding, and like me and the tightrope. They're just barely, missing me by inches. And as I'm walking forward, there's also this kind of cartoon-looking man, I guess, is the best way I can describe him. He's wearing like a trilby or like a bowler hat or something like that. And he's wearing a gray suit, and he's really short, but all I know is that he's yelling at me. He's saying something I cannot understand, but he's yelling at me, and he's following me along this tightrope. And as I move forward, I feel more and more like one of these boulders is eventually going to hit me. Usually at this point in my dream, depending on how far I get on the tightrope, I end up waking up, and since I'm still not of sound mind and I'm still having this fever, I'm not totally awake yet, and I still kind of feel like I'm in this dream. So when I wake up, I feel like these boulders are gonna like fall through my ceiling and they're gonna hit me. But since I'm awake, it feels like they're kind of not being disturbed at the moment. So I feel like I need to stand still, and even like the drop of a pin might be enough for them to fall on me. And at that point, after laying in my bed long enough, I usually kind of come to, and I'll be fine. I don't have that feeling anymore. But I've had this dream a couple times when I've been totally fine too, when I wasn't sick either. So don't really know what it means, but I've been having it for years. So that's basically the gist of it.
Well, my name's Keezy Freed, and I have a reoccurring dream. Let's see. Basically, I'm walking around, just kind of a normal day, and I'm walking through, actually the center building of Lane, but it's like the old building, kind of tacky with like the gross carpet and a lot of wood paneling everywhere, and it's a huge crowd, always extremely crowded, and I'm making my way through the crowd, heading to class or whatever. It's not really apparent where I'm headed, but I'm on my way to something, and then I look up and I run into this person, this woman that I used to have a relationship with, and she's just kind of walking towards me, and it's almost like she just appears out of nowhere, I guess. Like she's on her way to do something, and we run into each other and we stop and chat like people do. It's very, very real. It doesn't feel like a dream. It feels like something that would happen, just any day of the week. And we run into each other, and I'm just like immediately surprised. We haven't seen each other in years, and so I'm nervous and I'm excited. And as far as smells, I guess cigarette smoke and denim. Those smells are pretty reminiscent of our relationship. We start to chat, we start talking about where we're at in our lives and how long it's been since we'd seen each other, and she starts telling me just how great her life has been going and how she's clean and sober and going to school, has finally found something that she wants to do with her life, and it's just this very, very exciting conversation, and I'm very, very happy because for a long time, I've always wanted to see her achieve those things that I know that she can do. And it's just the feeling of finally seeing that happen is very overwhelming in a good way. And we're chatting, and it's just, there's this real big sense of closure. It's very beautiful, very, very beautiful moment. And we hug, and say that we love each other and we respect each other, and we go on our separate ways, and it just feels so good to say goodbye and to see this person who I knew for so long finally find their way through life. And then I wake up and I'm laying in bed and I realize slowly that none of those things are true and that they'll probably never be true. You know, that she is still struggling through life and not really finding her way, not really living up to what I know that she can be, and there is no closure. It's definitely not surreal. It's very, very real, and I think that's a big part of like waking up. It's always like a trick. Like for a couple of minutes, I really do feel like it did happen. You know, I think that that's the most important part of it. Is not necessarily the dream. The dream is just a normal kind of interaction. It's beautiful, but it's the waking up and the realizing that it's not the case that is really hits me, you know, every time. Because every time I wake up, it feels like it happened. It feels like it happened the night before. And as that feeling slowly fades and I'm trying to hold on to it, it just leaves me with empty, kind of somber feeling that I carry for the rest of the day. And yeah, that's my dream.